All right, welcome to the strategic briefing. Today, we're going to go inside the machine. We are breaking down the playbook that drives significant wealth, moving past the headlines to really understand the core mechanics of how power is compounded. So let's start with a belief that you hear all the time, right? The idea that extreme wealth is basically just luck. And, it's a comforting thought. But as we're about to see, it completely misses the deliberate architecture that's really at play. The reality is so much more structured. It is not about random chance. It's about a playbook, a set of principles that creates a totally different kind of economic engine. And today, we're going to reverse engineer it. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by deconstructing the playbook. Then we'll dive deep into its three core pillars: the ownership engine, strategic leverage, and tax efficiency. And finally, we'll see how these all lock together to create something incredibly powerful: the compounding flywheel. Okay, let's get started. The goal here is to look right past all the noise and really map out the core mechanics that drive this entire system of compounded power. So let's talk about our first pillar: ownership. This is the absolute foundation. It's a massive mindset shift, from just earning an income to owning the assets that generate that income. And this slide just lays out the contrast perfectly. On the one hand, you have the employee mindset. Your time is directly tied to how much you make. Simple enough. But on the other hand, you have the owner mindset, where your assets are working for you, generating wealth automatically, even when you're not. And this right here, this is the engine itself. We're talking about the core asset classes: stocks, real estate, entire companies. See, as the economy grows, the value of these things just tends to rise along with it. It's passive appreciation, but on a massive scale. But look, ownership is only part of the story. This is where our second pillar comes into play: strategic leverage. If ownership is the engine, think of leverage as the turbocharger. It's all about using unique advantages to multiply the growth of those assets. Our source material boils this down to three key types of access. First, there's access to better investment deals, the kind most people never even see. Second, access to more sophisticated, insider-level financial strategies. And third, and this one is absolutely crucial, access to cheap money. So how does that actually work in practice? Well, this slide breaks it down. It's a simple but incredibly powerful process. Step 1, you borrow a ton of money at a very low interest rate. Step 2, you invest that money into assets that generate a much higher return. The difference between those two numbers, what they call the spread, well, that's pure amplified profit. Okay, so once that wealth is being generated and accelerated, the next job is to protect it. And that brings us to pillar number 3, tax efficiency. Think of this as getting rid of any friction or drag on that powerful asset engine you're building. And this is where the strategy really shines. The tax code treats different kinds of money differently. The vast majority of wealth at this level isn't coming from a salary. No way, it comes from investments growing in value. I mean, this chart just shows you the advantage in black and white. As our source points out, income from investments is often taxed at a significantly lower rate than salary income. And that difference is everything. It means more capital stays in the system, ready to be put right back to work, basically pouring more fuel on the fire. And that brings us to the final piece of the architecture, where all three of these pillars lock together: the compounding flywheel. This is the part where time becomes the ultimate amplifier, creating a gap that becomes, mathematically, almost impossible to close. This quote from the source material just says it all, doesn't it? It's a relentless, automated process. Ownership, leverage, tax strategy, they all combine to create a system where money is just constantly making more money, 24/7. This timeline really makes the power of compounding tangible. In the early years, the growth is steady. But as that flywheel starts spinning faster and faster, you hit an inflection point. By year 15, you're on an exponential curve. It's like a rocket ship. And by year 30, that small advantage you started with has now created this massive, unassailable gap. So, as we wrap this up, the key takeaway here isn't just to understand this system, but to think about how to apply its principles. And that leaves us with a critical question to consider. When you look at your own strategies, which pillar from this playbook, ownership, leverage, or efficiency, offers the biggest opportunity for transformation?